Have you ever stopped to think about how a company can make, say, 1 million tablets and then be absolutely sure the entire batch is perfect by testing just a tiny handful? I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the statistics that make it all work, and more importantly, how you can justify it when an auditor comes knocking. Let's jump in. Right, let's start with a core problem. Picture this. You've just manufactured a massive batch of product. It's huge, and you simply can't test every single item. I mean, there'd be nothing left to sell. So you're faced with this massive decision about the quality of the whole batch based on a teeny tiny little sample. And that, right there, is the heart of the sampling dilemma. And let's put some real numbers on it, because this is where it gets wild. You've got 1 million tablets sitting there, 1 million. And your entire decision to release or reject that batch comes down to the 50, yes, 50, that you tested. That is a huge leap of faith, isn't it? The real question isn't just, hey, is this okay? It's, how on earth do I prove this is okay? That's the challenge. So when you look at it like this, side by side, the scale is just staggering. How do you stand up and say with complete confidence that these 50 little tablets are a perfect reflection of the other 999,950? It can't be a gut feeling. It can't be, well, this is how we've always done it. It has to be a rock-solid, scientifically defensible position that can withstand any challenge. And believe me, it will be challenged. Because this isn't just some internal puzzle you're trying to solve for fun. Nope. This is a high-stakes game of regulatory compliance. An auditor from the FDA, the MHRA, you name it, when they walk through that door, a simple shrug and saying, well, it seemed like a reasonable number. That is absolutely not going to fly.
This right here, this is what it all boils down to. This is the expectation. They don't just want to see that you have a sampling plan. They want to see the proof. They want to see the math. They want to know for sure that your entire approach is built on a solid foundation of statistics, not just, hope and tradition.
And getting it wrong has some serious consequences. It's like you're walking a tightrope. Lean too far one way with a sample that's too small, and you could let a bad batch slip through. I mean, that's a potential disaster for patient safety. But lean too far the other way, test way too many, and you risk rejecting perfectly good batches, which costs a fortune. It's a really delicate balance.
So, how do you stay on that tightrope? How do you find that perfect balance? Well, it's not some kind of dark art. It's just about having the right tools for the job. So let's go ahead and open up the statistical toolkit and see what we can use to build a plan that's actually defensible.
Okay, one of the most common ways to do this is with what's called an NPR plan. It sounds technical, but it's actually pretty simple. Think of it like a recipe with 3 ingredients. First, you've got N. That's your sample size, how many you're going to test. Then there's P, which is basically your best guess at the defect rate for the whole batch. And finally, R. That's your red line, your absolute deal-breaker number of defects. Find more than R and the whole batch gets rejected. So, for example, a plan might be, we're going to test 100 tablets, and if we find 2 or fewer that are defective, the batch passes. Simple as that. But here's the cool part. The more you test, so the bigger your N, the more confident you can be. And the lower you set your R, say down to 1 or even 0, the tougher and more stringent your quality check becomes. You're in control of the dials. Now, another term you're going to hear all the time is AQL, which stands for Acceptable Quality Level. And this is really important. This isn't about aiming for absolute 0 defects, because that's often impossible. Instead, AQL is you, the manufacturer, drawing a line in the sand and officially stating, okay, this is the maximum percentage of defects we are willing to accept. It's a huge part of your overall quality agreement. And check out how tweaking these numbers just completely changes the game. Look at Plan A versus Plan B. All we did was test more tablets. We tripled the sample size, and our plan instantly got more stringent. But now look at Plan C. Wow, we keep that large sample size, but we drop our acceptance number to 0. No defects allowed, period. That is a highly stringent plan. You can see how much power you have just by adjusting these 2 numbers. But here's a critical point. A solid sampling plan isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. You can't just create it once for your validation batch and then assume it's good forever. No, it has to be a living, breathing part of your day-to-day process. You need to be constantly watching, constantly monitoring to make sure your process is staying in a state of control. And of course, there's an official name for this. It's called Continued Process Verification, or CPV for short. The best way to think about CPV is like a continuous health checkup for your entire manufacturing process. It's the formal system you use to collect and analyze data over the long haul to prove, without a doubt, that you are consistently making a quality product. So what does that actually look like? Well, with CPV, you're basically playing detective. You're gathering data on all your key parameters, you're using cool tools like control charts to visualize that data, and you're always on the lookout for any weird trends or patterns. The goal is to spot a small issue and fix it before it has a chance to blow up into a really big problem. All right, let's wrap this all up. We've covered a lot of ground. So here's a super simple checklist. Think of it as your key takeaways for building a sampling strategy that is absolutely rock solid and ready for any auditor who walks in the door. It really comes down to this. Your sample size has to come from science, not from a hat. That's your foundation. Then you need a clear playbook, defining your rules with your N, R, and your AQL. And you have to back every single decision with statistical justification. That's your armor against any audit questions. And finally, you keep that process healthy with ongoing CPV. That's how you stay in control. And that really brings us to the final, most important question, the one you need to ask yourself. When you look at your own processes through this lens, is your sampling plan truly defensible? Is it built on a solid foundation of science? Or is it just a house of cards waiting for a gust of wind? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.